So NASA have just released this jaw-dropping video of them actually landing on
We have
Mars.
started our constant
You're about to
velocity
see
accordion,
this
which
is the
means we
engine
are
blast.
conducting
They've
the
got these
fly crane,
hydrogen engines on it.
about to conduct the fly crane maneuver.
And they're kicking up some dust. This is them lowering the rover
Tracking
down.
maneuver has started.
Ooh, little wheel wobble there.
About 20
And
meters off the surface.
20 meters off the surface. It lowers the right. You can see the separation of the.
MRO.
That's amazing.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown!
Touchdown confirmed.
And off goes the sky crane.
Safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Now, the thing that makes this really amazing is by the time they were doing this, it had all happened like 15 minutes ago. Right? The fate was sealed before they could cheer or not cheer. And the reason for that is, of course, Mars is quite a long way away. Let's get Celestia up. So, of course, that's us there on Earth. And we're going to take a look towards the North Pole, and we're going to zoom out from the North Pole all the way out. There we go. So there's the Earth, there's Mars. Takes light from the sun about 8 minutes, 7-8 minutes, that sort of thing, to get to the Earth. So this is like 15 minutes, which is, of course, why you need all the automation stuff on the landing, because, yeah, 15 minutes to send the message, 15 minutes for it to get back. When you're on opposite sides of the sun, it's almost half an hour there and back. So that's why they had all the automation. So when they were cheering, it had already happened 15 minutes ago. And you might remember, let's see if we can actually center up on the sun. Right, so this is the Earth now. This is Mars. Everything goes around counterclockwise. And, of course, the closer you are to the sun, the quicker you go around. But I'm going to set time going backwards. And I'm going to make it go faster and faster backwards. Ooh. Let's see if we can actually center and track on the sun. There we go. Super. It'll be less confusing that way. Right. So, this is earlier this year, actually last year. It's October last year. See if I can move that down so it's actually, you see what the time is. This is October last year when Mars was at opposition. This was when Mars looked really good. And it's also about the time you need to launch your space vehicles if you want to go to Mars. So what you do is, I think it's about there is the launch window. You launch there, and that way you just come up. Actually, you can see how long it takes. And you hit Mars now, which actually I'm way off on my timing. But yeah, it takes the best part of 6 months to go to Mars. Right, so what actually happened with their rover? So it's got to do several things. So they've now synced up the times. Right? So they've synced up what they were doing on the ground when they were finding out what is actually happening with the actual rover footage, because it takes most spacecraft have lousy but very robust data transmission systems. So they're not great at sending back huge amounts of data. So quite often, let me get my Celestia back. It's quite often that with these space vehicles, when it's like, for instance, the one that went out to Pluto, Deep Horizons, the transmission rate was so incredibly slow that if it was trying to transmit its pictures of Pluto back in real time, you would get like half a picture or something. So what it does is it has a memory on it, so it writes all the data to memory as it flew past Pluto. I don't know whether we can actually get Pluto on there. There we go. So as it flew past Pluto, it stored it all in memory, and then it transmits it back later. And of course, from Pluto, it takes like an hour to get the data back to Earth. also, you need much, much better radio gear to get the signals back from Pluto than from Mars. Anyway, so with Mars, they've actually got their spacecraft in orbit, which I think relays a lot of this. So let's take a look at what they've got to have happen in sequence for all this to work out
Starting
correctly.
to straighten up and fly right.
So I can tell you exactly what it is in real time because I got this on the video editor. It's 3.5 minutes.
Starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
So we've already ditched a load of the energy that we had going to Mars with a heat shield. And so now they get into the parachute deployment. Boom!
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the...
Right, I mean, this is just incredible. Mars has almost no atmosphere. It's, give or take, 1% of Earth's atmosphere, and this is still not down at ground level where the atmosphere is densest. So, these high-speed, low air density parachutes, the only way you can sensibly test them is in space. You go up to the best part of 100 miles and you can sort of test these parachutes, but it turns out it's so expensive just to test parachutes that it's only really ever been done once, I think, and I think it was post-Apollo days, but yeah, they've never got the funding to repeat the low pressure gas parachute
velocity.
deployment.
Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Right, so 450 meters per second, that's about 1.5 times the speed of sound.
Heat shield set.
And this just gives you some idea of how little deceleration you're getting from the parachute.
Meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Basically, the rate that thing falls away
Heat shield set.
Perseverance has now
is
slowed
the
to
deceleration that you're getting from the parachute. So if you didn't have the parachute, you'd fall at the same speed as
both
that.
the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Right, so we're down to about half the speed of sound, and in about 40 seconds. Yeah, that's actually pulling. That's pulling like G's.
9.5 kilometers above the surface.
10 kilometers up. So we're about the height now of Mount Everest, give or take. The mountains, it turns out, are really quite close to the ground. So on Mars, we're below the biggest mountains on Mars at the moment. And I can tell you where we're going to land.
Nav filter converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground.
We've dropped 3 kilometers. We're going to land over here. Okay.
Velocity is about 100 meters per second.
We're down to a third of the speed of sound.
0.6 kilometers above the surface of Mars.
So as the atmosphere gets denser, the parachute does more work.
Continuing to descend on the parachute, we're coming up on
we're going to land over here.
Initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second.
90 meters per second, a third of the speed of sound, 200 miles per hour.
At an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
4 kilometers. We're now to the point where I've hiked mountains higher than that. Your highest mountains in America, in the contiguous bit anyway, or most modest-sized mountains, ignoring Everest and some of the Andes, 4 kilometers is a good mountain height on Earth.
LVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Timing. TBA is nominal.
We have timing of the landing engines.
That's the separation. That's the backshell separation, that little puff of that. Whee! Little puff. That's backshell separation. We are now free falling, right? Well, we would be free falling if it didn't have these thrusters. It's got these hydrazine thrusters, which are, if you're going to do something like this, reliability is absolutely everything. So the simplest thing that you can do is cold gas thrusters, where you just open up a tap. With these, I think they decompose hydrazine on a catalyst. So they produce more thrust, but they're essentially still monopropellant thrusters. All you have to do is to be able to open a valve, and they work.
Backshell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the backshell has separated.
Backshell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
So that means that these are sort of sensible-sized dunes, 2 kilometers away. What would that be? I'm not entirely sure. This is quite a narrow field camera.
There's confirmation that the backshell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an
75 meters per second. We're getting down to 100 miles per hour.
Altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Here in safety.
Right.
Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation.
We're on the engines.
Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters.
300 meters?
Off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are
looks like
this is about to conduct the sky crane maneuver.
Yeah, right. So this is it's quite a narrow field of view, but it's still amazing that you've got 4 jets on this, and they're blowing out in different directions, which means that under the lander here, you can actually see the 2 streams actually converging. Oh, that is lush.
The sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver.
Right.
Sky crane maneuver has started.
Oh, look, blue sky on Mars. So the monopropellants, you decompose hydrazine, you get hydrogen and nitrogen. They're going to be adding nitrogen to the atmosphere. Maybe we can grow some plants. But yeah, when they deploy it, what's the lander wheel? What's this wheel here?
Sky crane maneuver has started.
Yeah, a bit of a wobble.
About 20 meters off the surface.
Extends the wheels. That's incredible. Put it again. Yeah, so there's definitely some... so this is the first time. They've done this before with the Curiosity rover, but there were none of the engineering cameras on this. So they just had to trust that it all worked. By the way, this is... It might seem insane, but some of the earlier landing missions, things like Spirit and Opportunity, they were crazier even than this. So they would have, I think, like 3 parachutes, and then it would lower the probe down on a line, and then it would inflate airbags, and then it would fire the retro rockets for a few seconds to slow it down. Then it would drop the probe, the rover, inside these airbags, and then they would... it's incredible. Anyway, where are we at?
Sky
Wobbling wheels. Wobbling wheels.
About 20 meters off the surface.
So, just so you know, these 3 things is what's carrying the rover. These are the 3 lines looking up towards the sky crane, and this is the umbilical, which is transmitting the pictures from the rover camera looking up. Sorry, from the sky crane looking down to the rover, and the rover's what's storing everything.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Yeah, it's quite a bit dust that picks up there. My God, the rover vanishes. This, by the way, is a thermoelectric generator, all the radioisotopes and all that sort of thing. The whole guy runs, I think, off 150 watts or something, which is crazy small amounts of power.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown!
Confirmed.
And off goes the
Perseverance
sky
safely
crane.
on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Yeah. That's just George. Yeah. Give yourselves a round of applause, guys.
It gives me goosebumps every time I see it. Just amazing.
Yeah, damn straight. I mean, that is just super impressive. Right? So previously, you would get like a few images, maybe back. This to get video like this, it was all done with essentially industry standard cameras as well. Which your main problem with running things like that is on Mars, you're essentially in a vacuum. 1% atmosphere doesn't provide a lot of cooling. So you can run into problems with electronics like that overheating. They also say they put a let's see if we can actually find it, a microphone on the rover. So some of this is fascinating. Well, one of the nice things about this is, well, I like this because it's, this is how science really works. There's, the rover cost $2.5 billion, or the program did in total. There were so many people involved in this, and it's not, how shall we say it, all one glory hog pretending he's done all the work. The thing is that that's actually got some appeal to it in that it's simple and but that's not how it works in reality. It's the shuttle. Yeah, so the progression of what that's the first rover they ever sent. It's not that much bigger than a remote controlled car. It was Sojourner. And this was the first, they were just testing it out. This landed airbags as well. Okay. No, I should have marked it up. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's crazy. So there's the rover, heat shield, descent stage, and all of the rest. Oops. There's a bit where the guy takes his microphone off and says we can listen to, yeah, it's bloody huge, this thing. It's it weighs about a ton. Well, it weighs about a ton on Earth. You got to be a little careful here when mass is, of course, exactly the same. How much it weighs changes, but it's just, and we typically use mass and weight interchangeably because gravity doesn't change. But on Earth, it weighs about a ton. On Mars, it weighs about 0.6 tons, which kind of helps. And it's absolutely bristling, this guy. That was the high gain antenna. Yeah, this guy's the high gain. Well, I think that's the high gain antenna. Either on the Curiosity and whatever that. And these are the radiator fins on the thermoelectric generator. So with the thermoelectric generator, there's a load of radioactive stuff in the middle there, which gets hot. You then have a Peltier effect type device, which if it's hot on one side, cold on the other, generates some current. but that means you've got to dump the heat to keep the other side cold, which is what all the radiator fins are for. Anyway, the guy says he's here we go. This is it. This is the guy saying that we're going to get some sounds of Mars.
I invite you to sit back and have a listen to what it would sound like to be on Mars.
A very slight gust of wind, but you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, because the thing about Mars is almost no atmosphere, 1% atmosphere. So I'm actually tempted, maybe I ought to do this, get a vacuum chamber and pump it down to a millibar, and you see what effect that has on microphones. It's actually a standard microphone again. The cameras they have on this are, I'm stunned it worked as well as it did, but hey, these guys, you produce the goods. Yeah, okay, let's
going to descend on the parachute.
There's these little tune things.
The
We're landing
initialization
over
of
here.
terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an
100 miles per
altitude of
hour.
4.2 kilometers.
I can't tell you how many rovers have got to this point without cameras on and
We have
ended up
confirmation
just
that the
making
lander vision
craters.
system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Yeah. Again, it's got to do it. It's got to do it all on its own, with no interference from people whatsoever, because people are 15 minutes away.
We have priming of the landing engines.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN Safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane.
I should
About to
sync
conduct the
that
sky
up
crane
with an
maneuver.
action altitude reading.
Sky crane maneuver has started. About 20 meters off the surface.
That's just absolutely remarkable.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Touchdown
Touchdown.
confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars,
Damn,
ready
boys.
to begin seeking the sands of past life.
That's incredible. Yeah, good job, guys. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you because it's awesome. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.